Quan's ex-partner recently revealed that Quan was aware of the true behind-the-scenes details surrounding Nut's death and the role Thug had in it. Amber Williams wasn't simply Rich Homie. The only person who was closest to Quan throughout the aftermath following Big Nut's death was his long-term girlfriend, who witnessed not only the tension but also how Quan began acting differently after. The way he retreated from Thug and the terror in his eyes when his father was shot may not have been made public, but she was aware of what Quan knew and the names he whispered behind closed doors. The relationships he formed but was afraid to publicly discuss, and when he said, "You can tell Thug had something to do with it, but we just can't prove it." Quan made it apparent in leaked audio that he hadn't been carrying the line for a long time, something Amber had been seeing gnaw away at him for years. Interviews said he thought young Thug was involved with Big Nuts and that he wasn't just a bystander. Rather, he was bound to the streets around Nut. And when the situation changed, he noticed it immediately. And that same change also ruined his connection with Thug. They went from exchanging hits to hardly sharing a room, and the rift was particularly strong after Quan's. Dad was shot by YSL members, which only increased conjecture about who was sending the texts, and why Amber has been politely and silently grieving Quan's passing. Amber was also the one who discovered Quan unconscious. She contacted 911 right away and shown only sincere sorrow, but it doesn't imply she didn't know anything when you're that close to someone. Like Quan, it's nearly difficult to avoid picking up the pieces during that kind of pandemonium. Amber was present to witness all that happened, and she was aware of Big Nut's passing. She would have witnessed Quan's paranoia, his silence, and his altered behavior following Big Nut's murder when the fallout with Thug occurred and Quan's father was shot. Now, let's chat. Before he was assassinated, Big Nut was striving to advance in the music game and was more than just a street figure. He was a father, a son, a big buddy to his gang, and he was managing not to. Not only Rich Homie Quan, but also people like YFN Lucci, who had genuine connections in the city from the ghetto to the music scene and had intended to leave the streets permanently, but that opportunity got. Nut was scheduled to meet up with his father, brother, and a few other people at a sports bar on Memorial Drive on January 10, 2015, to watch a playoff game, but before he went there, he stopped by. After getting a haircut at Hair Unlimited on McDaniel Street, he relaxed outside the establishment, smoking and chatting with customers in the parking lot. But something felt off as a large group of individuals stood around. Suddenly, someone wearing a mask and brandishing an AK-47 emerged from the sunroof, pointed directly at the throng, began spraying, and dashed toward the gray Infinity that was creeping past slowly. Store, but the gunman proceeded, and before he could enter the barbershop, he was struck many times. The doors were already shut, and others were hiding on the floor when he fired back. His own weapon, but it was too late. Two more were wounded in the confusion. Hendris, a longtime friend of Nuts, was shot in the back, and Tiger, a 14-year-old, was struck in the leg. Hurried to Grady Hospital, but only two survived. Shortly after Nut was there, people began discussing on the street, and it was said that this wasn't random. People were saying it was gang-related. Fingers began pointing at YSL, the group that was linked to Young Thug and was referred to as a Bloods branch. Lil Woody then sat down with Atlanta police back in. Woody claims that when he passed the barbershop in 2015 and noticed a Nut outside, he immediately told them Young Thug was involved. The fact that Thug Nut and the other members of YSL apparently connected up with 4 other members, exchanged cars, and doubled back to deal with it makes the whole situation even more bizarre. Good at one point, there was actual history there. In 2014, Nut was already well established in the music industry, managing Quan and Lucci, two men who were reportedly connected to them. In addition to repping, Englewood family gangster Bloods Nut was also performing power moves. In the background, Thug and Rich Homie were collaborating on a lot of music, particularly through Birdman's. Quan never signed any contracts with Rich Gang, but Nut was stepping in to make sure Quan didn't become involved in anything dubious or career-ending. Nut even traveled out to Los Angeles, and at first it appeared that everyone was getting along well, but later on, things changed and the tension began to rise. Miami decided to sit down with Birdman, with DJ academics, and revealed a small secret. He claimed to have had a FaceTime conversation with his wealthy friend Quan, during which Quan supposedly acknowledged that Nut was largely responsible for his refusal to formally join Rich Gang. In essence, Nut wasn't attempting to help Quan get into a poor deal, and it upset several people. Fast forward to May 2022, 7 years after Nut's passing. Prosecutors said that Young Thug Gun co-founded YSL when he and more than 20 YSL affiliates were slapped with a significant RICO indictment. Instead of portraying it as a music label, they labeled it a. Nut's death played a significant role in the case, which involved a violent gang linked to shootings, carjackings, and other incidents. 4 YSL members were accused in connection with the case. This is where things get complicated back in 2015. During the trial, Woody changed his story and said he had lied to avoid serving a lengthy sentence, although he still admitted to some crazy things, such as telling police that YSL and Thug were responsible for Nuts. Shellkel, one of the Nuts, retaliated by shooting up Rich Buddy, Quan's dad's barbershop, saying it was to send a message because Quan was teasing him with his buddy threat. They also had further run-ins with Thug's car and a YSL gambling area. Woody claimed that he and Shellkel met at the Cascade skating rink, where he pulled a gun on him but didn't shoot. Woody acknowledged that there was another incident in late 2014 when it popped off the shell at Club Crucial, and his crew rushed him before other YSL members began shooting. He broke into Nut's truck and took his phone, wallet, and a custom Planters Peanut Man chain. When Nut called his own phone, Woody answered, and they decided to connect so he could return the items. But, according to reports, that incident is what made Nut want retribution. But the feud didn't stop there. On Father's Day in 2019, Nut's mother visited his gravesite and discovered it spray-painted with the words SLAT. Green, a term associated with YSL, means slime love all the time. Fast forward to October 2024, when Young Thug entered a guilty plea to many gang and gun-related offenses. He was then released on probation notwithstanding. Nut's family has endured years of suffering and unresolved issues without justice, convictions, or closure. What we do know is that this Nut's passing left a void in his community. Was it a power move, or was he simply caught in the crossfire of a larger street war? Had relatives, friends, and a whole community that still recite his name. But a major factor in Nut's death was the significant split that we believe lately developed between Thug and Quan. Quan and Thug may not have spent much time together, but the impact of their disagreements that led them to go their own ways was brought to light once more. They made a lasting influence on the hip-hop community during their brief cooperation, and many fans and reviewers still consider them to be among the most interesting rap artists. The 2000s 10 Pair's chemistry, energy, and distinct styles came together in a way that felt novel and significant, signaling a turning point in Atlanta's music landscape. Their journey starts in 2013. Rich Thug was leaving Guffey when Birdman debuted his Rich Gang project, a Cash Money Records subsidiary featuring both Thug and Rich Homie Quan in the lineup. Due to Guffey's recent jail sentence and the release of several of his musicians, including Thug, who began collaborating closely with Birdman, Maine's 2017 Brick Squad label had already earned. In the meantime, Quan was working as an independent artist and creating waves in Atlanta with songs like Stoner and other collaborations with Gupti Maine. His breakthrough song had received a lot of radio airplay, and he was further recognized as a rising star by additional collaborations, including I Know with Yodi and Walkthrough. Both musicians were performing well on their own, but when they joined forces for the song Lifestyle, everything changed. Lifestyle swiftly rose to prominence as one of the summer's biggest hits in 2014, and the song was flawless. Portrayed the spirit of carefree success and youthful celebration, complete with fancy automobiles, expensive clothing, and a self-assured sense of fun. What further cemented the song's iconic status was how seamlessly Quan and Thug Styles meshed. Birdman requested Quan to join in and give a verse after initially expecting Thug to handle the track solo. Quan reportedly finished his portion in about 20 minutes. Unaware that those 20 minutes would propel him to a new level of fame, the Rich Gang partnership continued to thrive in 2014 after Lifestyle's popularity. Released Rich Gang Thar Part 1, a hit-filled full-length mixtape that included contributions from various artists, in addition to showcasing the duo's irresistible chemistry. Fans began to see Quan and Thug as the new dynamic combo in the underground scene after the project, which was associated with the Rich Gang brand, became a classic because to its catchy melodies and adventurous energy. Hip music with many anticipating even greater things from them in the future. But by early 2015, things started to change. In February of that year, Rich Homie Quan made it known that he wanted to withdraw from the Rich Gang collective in order to concentrate on his solo career. He stated, saying he felt compelled to go back to his origins and present his fans with a version of himself they didn't take the news well at first, but he made it clear that he wasn't severing his relationship out of animosity, but rather to reclaim his identity as an artist. Thug made comments on stage shortly after Quan's statement, which were taken as barbs at Quan fans. The incident was captured on camera, and it swiftly went viral on social media. People expected Quan to clap back, but in interviews after the incident, he adopted a more composed stance, calling Thug his brother for life and making it apparent that he had no aim of starting a public feud. Quan disclosed that they had known one another since middle school and had always had a sincere bond. He acknowledged that Thug's remarks were particularly hurtful. Even though they knew each other's phone numbers and could have communicated in private, Quan decided to reply politely, stating that he had no animosity toward Thug and that he still wished him luck when asked about Thug's most recent project, Barter 6, Quan once more selected the high road. Despite not having listened to the album yet, he stated that he was confident Thug did his job and maintained a polite tone. Despite the underlying tension, he insisted over and again that there was no genuine animosity between them, only a communication lull, and that they were only concerned with their individual careers and stopped communicating as frequently. But by the end of 2015, things had changed. In December of that year, Rich Homie Quan was caught on camera making disparaging remarks about Thug while on stage during a performance. He seemed inebriated and lacked complete control of his words. Shortly after, a Thug replied on social media, commenting about. Thug later handled the matter more composedly in an interview, stating that there was never truly a falling out between Quan's career trajectory and his suggestion that he didn't mean what he said. He remembered that Quan had requested a sabbatical from the group to concentrate on solo work, and although it was unexpected, there was no resentment on his part. Quan maintained his decision to leave Rich Gang, saying that he wanted to be acknowledged for his own achievements despite the fact that their once close musical cooperation was obviously different. He expressed gratitude for the songs they created together, not only as a pair or group, and claimed he felt no animosity toward Thug or Birdman, despite the fact that their artistic trajectories had separated. Quan stressed that they could get back together and start recording songs at any time, but he also made it apparent that Rich Gang was only ever a passing phase and not a permanent group. Regretfully, Rich Homie Quan's. After leaving Rich Gang, he got into a legal dispute with his previous label Taige, which stopped him from putting out new music, so his solo momentum didn't endure as long as fans had planned. This gap had a major impact on his presence and visibility in the rap world for almost 2 years, while Young Thug kept putting out projects and became increasingly well-known. Ultimately resolved his lawsuit and returned to his previous sound in 2017. The year got off to a good start, and there was even some speculation about a potential reunion of the Rich Gang. In interviews, Quan went on to explain that although he and Thug were no longer close, there was respect for one another and no animosity. A complete reunion was never planned. Occurred just as Quan was starting to regain his footing, but in May 2017, he suffered another setback when he was taken into custody at a Georgia police checkpoint on major drug and weapons charges. Although he ultimately defeated the charges, the arrest and court proceedings once again hindered his career. The legal situation was dire, with reports indicating he may spend up to 30 years in prison. Quan only launched 6 projects in 2017 and 2022, which isn't particularly low by industry standards. But considering the pace he maintained, it was quite a change. Between 2013 and 2015, Quan released around 20 projects, including mixed apps and collaborative work. However, his output decreased because of his legal troubles and lack of a steady label situation caused his popularity to noticeably decline, although Thug, who kept moving up the mainstream rap ladder and experimenting with new noises and receiving recognition for his adaptability, his work ethic, and his steady output kept him in the public eye and ultimately led to a chart of high-profile partnerships, #1 albums, and being regarded as one of his generation's most important artists. Despite everything that transpired between them, the relationship that previously existed between wealthy buddy Quan and, in both of their careers, Young Thug continued to be a pivotal moment that Quan had always expressed with elegance and clarity while looking back when they were together, deciding not to focus too much on any one time, reducing stress and concentrating instead on their compositions and the influence they. Sadly, was there any chance of squashing meat? Or the connections was terminated permanently with. The news is being passed by Rich Homie Quan highlighted a depressing time for people who kept up with and valued Quan's work. Presence in the sector might have diminished recently, but his impact has never genuinely vanished. Quan left behind a collection in which his narrative was told from his precursor to his seminal singles. But how do you feel about Quan's death? And the reality that he was well aware of. Thug engaged in dubious activities, including, we are aware of it below.